All right, guys, I am super excited to launch our first episode. This is kind of a pilot show. And what we're going to do is we want this to be very inclusive. We want to kind of get your feedback on it. And the idea is that as the episodes develop, we'll kind of come up with more of a structured flow, but it's pretty loose and it's pretty open-ended. And so let me start off by kind of discussing a couple of housekeeping items. So the first thing I want to do is just mention that I run a small agency. I'm doing this show with Lorenzo, my partner, and Lorenzo is a consultant and he's highly specialized in what he does. And what we're trying to do is bring our unique perspectives. Lorenzo and I have been talking about buyer psychology and friction on the web for the last decade. And we've had these really interesting animated conversations about these very specific topics. But they've been private conversations. And one of the insights we had only recently was, what if we were to publicly talk about some of these things in very specific and practical terms? So no theory, we want to actually do the work and show you the work and look at the same puzzle, because we look at things in very different ways. So I will look at it from my perspective independently. Lorenzo will look at it from his perspective independently. And then we will, in a public forum with you guys around, we will present our findings. The goal of the show is to not to pick a website and find faults. There are plenty of channels and there's plenty of content that does do teardowns. We kind of want to look at it as a build up. We want to find insights that could make these websites and your website more money, and ask really interesting questions that will help you radically kind of rethink the psychology of the buyers that are on your website. So who's this going to benefit? By the way, I apologize, I'm reading from my notes, but this is totally new to us, right? So who is going to benefit? This is going to obviously benefit any online brand, whether you are a junior marketer, you are a senior marketer, you're the VP of e-commerce, or you're the CEO. We want to create content in a way that this show should make sense. Lorenzo is going to talk, for example, about research, and we don't want to talk about research in such highly technical terms that other researchers will understand, but nobody else will understand. And so it's really important for us to describe it in very simple English, the best we can. And if there is something that we describe that doesn't make sense or is not clear, give us comments, give us feedback so we can kind of make adjustments. We want this to be valuable to you. I want to now kind of, tell you a little bit about, I guess I should hand over to Lorenzo. He can talk himself about what he does and what he brings to the table.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited, Rishi, to do this with you. You and I have been talking about this for a very long time. We've been friends for years. So I couldn't think of any person to do a show like this one, like yourself. So I'm Lorenzo. I've been in CRO for over 5 years now. Previously, I've done marketing, I've done sales. So I have a quite extensive experience. In my day-to-day, I'm a CRO, experimentation and customer research consultant working with online businesses. And yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with Rishi, so we were super excited to have the first episode and kind of like talk about the kind of conversation that we had behind the scene, with a practical example of companies that create great products. Rishi obviously is the #1 product optimization expert in the world, so he's had, I can't think of anybody else that had such a strong experience with product pages. So that's why we're doing this together.
Cool. Awesome. One thing I should mention before we get started is that please subscribe to our channel, so you can get notifications. In fact, there might be a bell icon. We're not classy enough right now to show little animations, but eventually we will. We want to make sure that this content gets to you. One thing, we're going to be experimenting with the length of the content. We don't know if we should keep it super short. We don't know how long we should take it. I think one of the thoughts that we had was we could record. We want to keep the episode short and to the point and tight, but we want it to be also meaningful. We don't want to talk about things in such high level where it's like, okay, well, I understand what you're saying, but how do I use it? But at the same time, we don't want to talk about 50 things in one episode because that's not possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to experiment with the format. And in the future, we might actually come up with 2 formats per episode so that you can, if you want to dig further into it, you have the long form format as well. If you want to just skim it, you've got the short form format. So Lorenzo, have I missed anything at this point, or should we kind of introduce the website we're going to talk about today?
Absolutely. Let's do it. If you want to start sharing your screen and show what brand and product we chose.
So let's talk about that first. We have intentionally selected Dyson. Dyson is a British brand. They were originally known for making vacuum cleaners that work really well. And in fact, Lorenzo's parents have bought a Dyson as well. And he did some research on them. It's a really interesting, so we like Dyson for a bunch of reasons. It's a non-impulse purchase. It's a pretty expensive it's a premium vacuum cleaner. It's also a technical product. So people aren't buying it because it looks cool. Certainly it does look cool, but there's more to it, which means that the product page actually has to demonstrate those technical details. And the other reason we like Dyson is because, they are very inventive and they're inventing new products. And I think the kind of psychology of the buyer who's buying a new type of technology is very different from someone who's buying technology that is easily understood. And so we thought it was a very good example to start off with. Over time, we will be looking at subscription businesses. We will look at supplement businesses. We will look at businesses that can demonstrate expertise, and other businesses, for example, a supplement where you can't even demonstrate it. So what psychology applies there? We will look at things like jewelry. We will look at things, so that we have a lot of ideas. But for today, let's talk about Dyson. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Lorenzo, if it's okay with you, I will just kind of go through my part first real quick.
Yep.
And then we'll hand it over to you. So I'm going to try and set this up. Let's see if there's a way for me to, there we go. I want Lorenzo and I to, there we go. Excellent. Okay. So what I'm going to show you guys, and you don't have to necessarily really worry too much about this document, but what we are doing, what I'm actually literally showing is the process that I use to start thinking about a problem. So right now we're talking about the Dyson product page, and I should actually open it up very quickly so everyone can see. Oops. So see, this is what happens when you do a live show. Okay. So I'm going to open the product page real quick. And so the way we looked at it was, okay, if we were to get Dyson as a customer, which we hope to get at some point, how would we go about? What's really interesting is you'll notice over here, they're doing some clever things like, but we're going to avoid that. We're going to really focus on the core principles. But if we were to get Dyson as a client, how would we go about working on this best-selling product page? And we wanted to kind of literally show you the process we would use and the process that we use right now. So my process, I'm going to start with my process. My process is to what we call do deconstruction. And deconstruction is a very disciplined and systematic process through which I am looking at every single element, every single pixel on the page, and I'm annotating each element. So to actually give you a practical example, this is an example, and I will make this a little bigger. So, okay. So this is the deconstruction process. We literally are annotating each element over here. And I've selected the mobile version of it because I'm pretty confident that for Dyson, most of their traffic is mobile. So we annotated each element over here, and it kind of goes from the top of the page to the bottom of the page. So I think we had a total of 131 annotations. Now, why does this matter? One of the principal mistakes, our brains are always playing tricks on us. So when I look at a marketing puzzle, my brain is, before I've even understood what the puzzle is or the problem set, my brain is already throwing out solutions. So what happens is when you look at a page, you have a tendency, we all do, I do as well. I'll click on the video, or I'll kind of scroll down over here and I'll start obsessing about this part of the page and I'll start trying to find a solution over here. Well, you need to kind of survey the land first. And surveying is a very disciplined principle. And so we are treating this like an archaeological dig. We're archaeologists, we found this lost civilization, and we are literally taking our brush and we're kind of looking at each element and understanding that element and understanding the context of that element and asking ourselves, why is this here? And how would I have dealt with it? So there are a couple of things that we're looking at. We're looking at the clarity of the language. We're asking ourselves, is this element even needed at this point? We're saying, is there a simpler way to use this element? Is it at the right, is it being emphasized in the right way? So there's a whole bunch of things that we're doing. So let's actually now talk, let's actually kind of show the, so you notice over here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you our comments. So let's see. So this might be a little challenging. So, okay. So unfortunately, there's no simple way of doing this. So over here for point number 1, I've written, I have no comment. So point number 1 is this element over here, and it's a site-wide element. And I have no comment for it because I don't want to change the functionality of their site-wide element. One of the things we are thinking about is that we are working specifically on this product page, but Dyson is a huge brand and they have 20 different types of products. We also want to keep the experience consistent because the user will come to this page, but they may also go to their other product pages. And if we change functionality or the design dramatically on this page, it's going to create inconsistencies for the buyer. So anytime we see an element that's a site-wide element, we basically say, okay, do we really want to make a change here? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is we don't. So I've said no comment over here. Similarly, for point number 2, excuse me, oops. Similarly, for point number 2, I've said I have no comment. I could have said, hey, this says add to basket. Maybe it should say add to cart. But I concluded that it was unnecessary in light of the fact that it's not a meaningful enough improvement. Now we start getting into something that we did have some thoughts about. So if you look at point number 3, which is over here, it says latest technology. Now, this is where context really matters. Well, the fact that it says latest technology tells me that this is something that the brand is trying to advertise. It is a technology product, and clearly for a buyer, latest technology matters. If it's if you're buying a laptop, I want to buy the latest laptop for that price point. Now, there are 2 types of people that are being exposed to this page. They are skimmers and they are diggers. And skimmers are people that just are interested in the elevator pitch. They see something, they see a word like latest technology, and they say, great, this has the latest technology. That was one of my criteria. Let's move on. They don't want more context. They don't need more context. But then there's this other group of people, which we call the diggers, who are coming to this page. They are certainly in the minority, but they are an important minority because they are not being catered for at all. And these guys are skeptical. And they're saying, oh, what do you mean by latest technology? In what way is it the latest technology? They could have a whole bunch of questions. And what humans do is when we're on a website, if you notice like kids with, there's this really interesting social phenomena where we say children can very quickly, you give them an iPad and they just know how to navigate it. What they're doing is they know this mechanism of tactile clicking on stuff. This is how we are as adults as well. And so if someone wants to dig into this and they want to kind of get more, they will naturally want to click on it. Well, on the website, you cannot interact with it. It is a statement and it ends there. So my insight was, what if we were to allow someone to click on it, and when they click on it, show them a light box or show them a pop-up where we are talking about specifically about the technology. There's a couple of things that have happened over here. The first is that we're not forcing, and this is a really important distinction, we're not forcing this content in for everyone because not everyone cares about it. The second thing is that who is clicking on it? Someone who is interested in more context around latest technology. As a copywriter, that is the ultimate cheat code for me because I already know what the buyer is looking for. I'm constructing a micro sales page to specifically address that. And so that's how we do it. And so, and also politically, it's easy when I go to Dyson and we pitch this idea. they're not going to say like, this is a bad idea, because you can't get to their idea unless or until you click on it. And the people who click on it clearly are signaling to us that it's something that they care about. So that is our insight. So what we've decided to do is that, okay, what happens when you click on it? So when you click on it, we need to really dramatize and emphasize what, our expertise. So we do it by saying, for the last 27 years, we've been thinking about tiny dust particles that live uninvited in our homes. There are 3 innovations that our latest Dyson outsize has. And then we kind of put the date when we launched it, because when you talk about latest technology, it's very time specific. If I have a product and I say this is latest technology and it was launched in 2005, well, that violates the definition of latest technology. So by saying when it's launched, we're actually confirming to the buyer that it is truly, it's a time sensitive thing that no previous version of Dyson had. This is really intentional copy. We're trying to draw a contrast between what this model does and what our previous models have done. And next we just kind of list the bullet points. We haven't filled this copy. We would have to investigate this and interrogate the client to understand the 3 highlighted features. Sometimes clients will say this Dyson outsize has 20 features. I'm not going to list 20 features. Nobody's going to read 20 features, but I know that they'll read 3 features. So I want to kind of really focus in on the 3 attributes that matter the most. And then we end the sales pitch. All of this is being shown in a light box. It says, if you had thought about buying this Dyson earlier this year, you would have got a really good cleaner, but you would have missed these 3 features. So we're trying to let the buyer know that, you've just discovered something really clever, really, really interesting. So that's the annotation. I'm just going to go through 1 or 2 more, and then I'm going to hand it over to Lorenzo. So that's what we're going to do over here. For 4, I think we said there is, we had a question over here. I'm actually going to ignore this point because I don't think this is relevant for the audience right now. But let's talk about more. So point number 5, and this is really important, is that we are actually talking about micro improvements. I think this is something people get stuck up on as well, is they say, well, this is too small an improvement. Well, we're not running an isolated test with this one micro improvement. We're taking all of these improvements. Each of these improvements might individually be worth 0.1% each. But when you kind of combine them and you set it up as a test, you actually are getting a meaningful lift. So it says 592 reviews. And I came up with, it says read 592 reviews. It's a very, very minor, I would even argue unimportant change, but it's a meaningful, it's an important change in the context of the whole variety of changes we're making. And I want to this is another point. I would never have thought about this idea if I hadn't been forced through this braking mechanism of number 5 to actually slow down here and say, how would I improve this? Because with each of these annotations, I'm actually asking myself, how would I make this better? It says 592 reviews. How would I make this better? And by forcing myself to answer that question, because the only 2 paths is I can say I cannot make it better, which is no comment. And then the other one is to say, oh, I could change the language a little bit. That's why these annotations are so powerful. All right, so point number 7. Oh, point number 6, this is important as well. I'll just share this real quick. So what I noticed is that this video is, all videos that demonstrate what the product do are very useful. If you go to the desktop version of the page, and I should actually open the desktop version, you can see it right here. It clearly says, see it in action. The video is very prominent. But if you go back to the mobile version, it is just a little icon on the top left corner of the image. The user might be fixated on the product and they may not notice it. It's the same proportion as the photos. And so our theory is that what if, and we know that they already have lots of click tracking enabled, but what if we were able to look at the number of people that clicked on this video, look at the conversion rate of the people that watched the video, and we would have discovered that people that watch the video have a conversion, let's say, of 8.5%. The overall conversion rate for this page, let's say, is 2%. So clearly we can see that people who watched the video was persuasive and they converted at a higher rate. And then we're looking to see how many people actually watched the video, and we discovered that it's 2.5%. The solution now is very simple. We've got an asset that converts really well, but it's not as visible. So then we would be forced to say, okay, how do we, for the mobile users, make the video more visible? And let me just kind of go through my notes here to see. So the way we are doing this is this is actually quite interesting, is that we call this a choreographed experience. So what we are going to do is instead of making this call to action bigger, see one of the challenges we have is that one way to get people to pay attention to us is to scream louder. So you can certainly make this bigger. You can even change the shape of it, and that might help, but you're kind of falling for the trap of like making these elements louder and louder. There's a better approach. The better approach is to actually repeat that video call to action at other locations. You might want to repeat it over here. You might want to repeat it at some other parts, maybe over here above the reviews, but you set it up as a choreographed experience. And what that means is that for the people that click on the video at the top of the page, you hide those two other references to the video. If someone misses the first reference, then obviously they'll notice the second reference. If they miss the second reference, then they'll see the third reference. So you're repeating it 3 times. You can repeat it 5 times if you want. But if the moment you interact with it, then the future references are removed, because you don't want the user to have to click on something else and watch the same video. That creates a bad experience. So you're setting this up in a very clever way to maximize the visibility while minimizing the annoyance factor. And I'm actually going to stop over here, and because I think it's important for us to not overwhelm. We have a total of 131 annotations. So you've only seen us talk about the first 6. And we'll stop here because we just want to underscore the importance of and the magical power of forcing yourself to write commentary about each of these elements. And what you're doing is you're coming up with these interesting micro improvements. We don't think that these 6 improvements are good enough for a test, certainly not. But we want to demonstrate the process. This is literally the process that we use. Lorenzo, do you have any questions before I hand it over to you?
Nope. I'm excited about continuing the next steps and looking at the other elements as well.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do, so next we want Lorenzo to kind of lead the research process. So Lorenzo, remind me one more time how you want to do. You want me to open your document?
Yes, please. If you want to open that one, and then go to the tab features. Yes, thank you, Rishi. So obviously Dyson is not our client, is not my client, is not Rishi's client. Maybe one day will be one of our clients. We'll see. But basically, my methodology is can be broken down in 2 parts, and it's all about data, analyzing both quantitative and qualitative data. But obviously, we don't have access to Dyson's data. So what I've done here is basically looking at the only data available out there, which everybody can, take a look at, which is customer reviews. So what I did was I went on the Dyson outside product page, and I basically mined around 300 reviews that they have. And for each review, I basically bucketed each insight coming from each review. I bucketed in different themes, which are the tabs that you see in this spreadsheet. So there's a theme for product features. There's a theme for pain. Which means mainly like pain points that people had during the experience. There's the benefits, the results. I'm not going to go through each one of it right now, but it's basically understanding different themes that people mention in different reviews to understand how we can actually go from unstructured qualitative data to structured, more quantitative data. If you wanna, maybe I can go through, like, for example, the features tab. So here, basically, I recorded the features that are mentioned the most in the review. So as you can see, 23% of the people was talking about the fact that they appreciate that the Dyson was cordless. Another 20%, was really appreciating the great battery life. Obviously, I'm not going to go through each one of these, results for each theme. So maybe what we can do is we can jump into back into the product page. So I can talk about a few things that I noticed as well based on my insights.
This one or the live site?
Yes, perfect. This one. So one thing that I notice here is that when it comes to the reviews, they're doing a good job at actually tracking the clicks there. So they actually set up custom events in Google Analytics every time somebody both taps on a mobile or clicks on the reviews. But the thing that is interesting is that when people actually click on the reviews, they get directed to a different page with a different URL. So from a Google Analytics perspective, it would be interesting to actually see, once the people land on a reviews page, what do they do here? Do they scroll down? Do they click on the pagination towards the end where more reviews can be read? How long do they stay on this page? Do they go back to the product page? How easy it is to go back to their product page? Because obviously, a lot of them are, diggers, as Rishi calls them. Like, so looking at, one review by one review, others are skimmers. So to me, understanding the people that go from a product page to this page and see what they do is interesting. Then going back to the previous page, the product page, something that I noticed is that in the experience on mobile is not visible because obviously there is a limited real estate there. But on desktop, if you want to show the desktop experience for a second, Rishi. Yeah, in the desktop experience, there's an interesting, they use an interesting copy just below the video, which is "seat in action." And I remember the first time I saw it, when I read it, I was like, of course I want to see the Dyson in action. I was excited about it. Like as a buyer, of course, like, Dyson is a product that people want to see in action. It's not a supplement where you're saying, okay, maybe I want to see how the supplement is mixed with something else, right? Like, I don't particularly care. People don't particularly care about that. But the Dyson, of course, I want to see that in action. So I thought they were doing a good job at using that copy to motivate people to actually click on the video and see it. But something I noticed is that that copy is interesting, but is a little bit not aligned with what the video is about. In fact, Rishi, if you click on that icon, we can see the video really quick. The video shows different things. So the copy "see the video in action" is not very aligned with what the video is about, because as you can see, the video shows some like clips of how they made it, some labs recording. So you're not really fully see, like, some designers drawing the design of the Dyson. So you're not really fully seeing what the video is about. And then from actually what I would do here instead, a few insights that came from the reviews analysis that I've done is that people actually use the Dyson for different surfaces. So for example, they use it for, if you want to go, sorry, Rishi, into the, yep. There's one tab called context. Yep. So as you can see here, people use the Dyson for different type of surfaces. They use it for the hard floor, they use it for the carpet, they use it for the car. So what I thought it would be interesting to test is actually a video that shows how the Dyson can be used in different surfaces. So you can have like a major, kind of like in one main video, and then below you can have kind of like other videos for each different surfaces. Because maybe there's some people, you know, with that kind of objection, they're saying, oh, I wonder if it works on my surface, or, you know, I have a specific type of surface that is very difficult to suck up the dirt. Maybe it's not gonna work for mine, right? So having a video that shows how the Dyson is powerful for different surfaces could be something interesting to test.
And I would, you know, just to add to that, I mean, you know, it's, you know, Dyson is a, I think, $6 or $8 billion brand. So it's very reasonable to, I'm 100% confident that they have 100 different video formats that demonstrate this specific product. And it's very curious to me, you know, and this is why that deconstruction process is so important, because you see, when you come here, you click on, you have to now pay attention to point number 6, and you click. So I focused on the fact that it's not very visible, but Lorenzo clicked on the video and he noticed that, hey, the video actually is not very descriptive, and it satisfies the skimmers. But it's to Lorenzo's point, it's, you know, we're making a promise here that you will see the product in action. And then we are kind of failing to deliver on that promise, because you're not really seeing the product in action. You're seeing a highlight reel. Why? I would be very interested in running a long form video, maybe not 20 minutes, but maybe like a 5-minute demonstration of the product, and see how people respond to it. Because, you know, remember, they're selling a product for $700. It's not an impulse purchase, and you know, it is also a product that many buyers, there will be certainly some people that are buying the Dyson that have already bought Dyson. I think Lorenzo might want to talk about that research that he did as well. But there'll be, the most important group for Dyson are people that have never bought Dyson before, because once you buy the Dyson, then you are part of the Dyson family, and they can sell you their hair blowers, they can sell you all their products that they have. For that person who has never seen a Dyson in action, you have created a call to action that is that's going to immediately connect with their psychology. The video doesn't match up with that. And I would have shown a 4-minute video, and I would have, you know, and you know, another thing we could have done is you could have actually had, when you click on this, we could show this modal and have 2 tabs, quick video and detailed video, and let the user drive the experience. If you have 2 videos, then let the user drive the experience.
Yeah, so talking about that, if you go back to the reviews mining document, there's the benefits tab. I want to show some interesting insights that. So this tab is basically dedicated to understanding what the benefits people mentioned about the product. So I want to focus on the number one, the top benefit that the most people actually mentioned, which is the powerful suction. So one thing that I noticed about the video in the product page is that the video doesn't have a volume, doesn't have audio. So I wonder, because, you know, people here, they said, oh, I bought it. Like, one of the benefits is like the super powerful suction. So I wonder if we could be testing a video that actually displays how powerful the Dyson is in different surfaces, because obviously, like, this is something that matters to the users. People have said that in the reviews, so it could be interesting to show how powerful, how it sucks up the whole dirt.
And Lorenzo, one of the geniuses of this analysis that you've done over here is, it's the ultimate cheat code for the copywriter, because you are telling the copywriter in what proportion to emphasize what details. You're basically saying, look, 31% of your copy should be focused on the powerful suction, because that's an attribute people are talking about. So I really love, I think there's so much you can gain from it. It's not just like what video should we show it. You know, we won't talk about it today, but I think in future episodes, you're probably going to even talk about how this research can be used for product development, right?
Yep.
But I think as a copywriter, to me, it's like I'm basically hacking the mind of my actual buyer. These are not, see, this what's really interesting here is that we're not running a Hotjar poll for people that came to the page and saying what mattered to you, because the opinions of just browsers is kind of, in my view, and I wonder if Lorenzo has a different take on this, but I place lower emphasis on that versus people who actually purchased and used the product. And Lorenzo's review mining is really focused on people that purchase the product. So 31% of them are saying that their post-purchase attribute that they really kind of really appreciate is the powerful suction, which tells me that, hey, maybe that's a selling angle that we need to emphasize. Maybe we do mention it as one of the 5 bullet points, but that is 20% weightage. What if we were to bump up the weightage based on the fact that, so I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, one thing that I think it's interesting about the value of reviews mining in general is that it's an organic way of actually explaining the experience. It's not us, it's not like the marketer that sends a survey asking, what are your favorite things about the features of Dyson, or what are the main benefits? This is organic insights, organic information that people are sharing. The other thing I want to mention about this is that, all these insights, they're not coming from machine learning, artificial intelligence, no technology. I went into their product, customer reviews product, and eyeballed every single one of the reviews, and I bucketed myself using my CRO hat. So all these different clusters within each theme is based on what people were writing that I basically gather from the reviews.
Yeah.
Should we move on to, I want to talk about the images, the product images that they have, because both you and I, because, Rishi went ahead and did his own process, but we didn't, and I did the same, but we didn't share notes. So we actually didn't know what each other's wrote in terms of like the different insights. Do you want to talk about the image gallery? I think you had some thoughts, and I had some as well.
Yeah. So, intentionally what we've done is, we don't want to necessarily go through all of the points, but I think this is an important one. So I just want to kind of share my philosophical view over here, because I think this is really important. So if you look at a heat map, one of the universal heat maps that are always created on product pages is that you will find a lot of activity around the product image. This kind of makes sense because our brains are highly visual and they are drawn to images. If you had a model, it would have even more. We would be looking where the model is looking. If she's looking down, our eyes would gaze down. It's just how we have been conditioned. So this area has a lot of attention. And the brand is, I think, making a mistake here because they are just showing the product. Now, as a copywriter, I know that people aren't reading this. Fewer people are reading all of this copy over here, but a lot more people are reading here, not only because it's top of the page, but also because it's a visual element. What if we could infuse some of our selling angles in this image itself? So we call this a picture story. And the way we do it is we keep the image the same and we just write copy around it. So I'll show you some of the things that I noted down over here. I found one of the attributes lower on the page, and this is another part of our process, is that when you are doing deconstruction, it forces you to kind of notice stuff that is lower on the page and say, hey, is this a hidden asset? The definition of a hidden asset is something that has a high conversion potential, but it's seen by very few people. So when I kind of went lower on the page, I noticed this piece of copy and I thought, this actually is really powerful copy. It says full size bin means less emptying. It's a benefit statement and it's not available in the top half of the page. And so my idea was, what I've done here is kept the exact same image. We're not changing the image because that could be political. So we're just adding this extra copy here. And I think this just makes it more effective. Another thing, let me see, there were two other things that I noticed in the desktop. So if you go to the desktop version of the page, you'll notice if you look on the right-hand side, it says twice the suction of any other cordless vacuum and 120 minutes of runtime. Again, very powerful benefit statements. Now come back and look at the mobile version. They don't mention that at all anywhere. Where they do mention it here, but notice how far away this has been from the image versus on the desktop, it's shown right next to it. And so we think this is a really good idea. So what if we were to create a picture story that kind of dramatize those two, so I'm pointing out over here how it's like separated out. But what if we were to, I just made a very bad mock-up, but what if we were to kind of have that copy over here and run this as it's a micro improvement, but that's my thought. Lorenzo, on to you now.
Yeah, if you want to go back into the reviews mining document and go in the switched from tab. Yeah, so basically this tab is actually one of my favorite ones, and I called it switch from theme. And basically what this tab shows is whenever a customer mentions where they switch from, which product they switch from, or even alternative solution, doesn't have to be a product. It could be any other alternative solution. There's a lot I have to say about this topic, but maybe in a future episode. Here's the list of all the products that customers has switched from. So from one product to the Dyson that we showed you guys in the previous video, in the previous tab. And as you can see here, just skimming through it, most of the people actually switch from either an old Dyson, which is not really specified, like that 29%, or any previous model, in this case specified like V6 or V8. And what's interesting about this is that we have to keep this in mind when we actually consider how to optimize the product page. Because if you think about this, like this is a lot of people that mention that they are coming from another Dyson product. So it's people that already are sold about Dyson as a brand, and now they need to be upgraded from an older version, which could be V1, V2, or whatever, to this new version. So now, what I thought about, Rishi, I wonder if we could have a section in the product page where we ask them, do you already own a Dyson? And if so, they can select a different type of version that they had before. And then once they select it, we can actually lay out all the features and benefits of why this version is actually better than the one that they selected. So instead of actually making them think and imagine and actually looking for that information that they're looking for, we actually tell them why this one is better than what they currently have. And
yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna say just last one thing. So I would do this not only for customers that are currently owning a Dyson, but also for competitors. So, for example, here some people mention that they own a brand called Shark, other ones called Rainbow, others Orek, Miele. So if you had a section where they actually people can select the different brands, and you can tell why the Dyson outright is actually better, would be super helpful. So it's super easy to understand why this model is better than any other competitors.
And this is such a beautiful idea, and I just love it. And actually, I'll just give a teaser a little bit about one of the ideas that Lorenzo and I talk a lot about. Is if you think about it, this page that we're describing to you right now, when Lorenzo came to it, he saw the exact same sales pitch, same description. When I came to it, I saw the same description. I would recommend you go to the same page. You will see the same description as well. This is a very absurd assumption that the marketer is making, which is that we have come up with the perfect description that works for all types of buyers. And we think, first of all, how did they calculate that? I don't even know how they figure that out. But more importantly, what is the average of a man and a woman? That's a stupid thing to average out, right? And so that this kind of gets to one of the core ideas that Lorenzo and I really believe in, is this idea of active participation, where the user is driving the experience. And so what Lorenzo has talked about is he wants to create what he's basically saying, and I'm just going to reinforce what he's saying, is that he's saying, look, if I had a Dyson V8, The contrast that I am looking for is in what specific ways is the Dyson outsize better than my V8. That's all I care about. I don't care how it's better than V6. It's irrelevant to me. I don't care how it's better than Auric or Electrolux or whatever those other brands are. I just want to know how it's better than the machine that I have. So what this is doing is it's creating a contrast. The user is driving the experience and they're saying, this is my model, and then you're creating contrast. I would say there's another contrast that the brand should create, which, so the contrast that Dyson is, that Lorenzo is talking about, is somewhat complicated, not super complicated, but I mean, it requires work. Obviously, you're going to have to kind of identify how it's different from Dyson V10 versus the Dyson outsize. Go ahead.
It's actually mentioned in the reviews. People, what they do is they actually give the benefits of this model, the outright, versus what they had before. So we actually can use their own language and their own benefits that they've mentioned in the reviews to actually sell each feature and each benefit.
I love it. I love it. And I'm just going to take it to a slightly different dimension. So the contrast that Lorenzo talked about, and we will discuss this in future episodes, but the contrast that Lorenzo talked about is between different models. I want to create another contrast between a Dyson customer and a non-Dyson customer. So imagine if at somewhere at the top of our sales page, wherever that may be, we are actually asking them a very simple question, maybe over here or something. Have you ever bought a Dyson before? Because the psychology of someone who has never bought a Dyson is very different than these. I think, Lorenzo, there were like 40% of people that were coming from the reviews that were coming from the Dyson family, maybe more.
Yeah, so let's keep in mind that we didn't ask. So it's not a survey where we asked if they had a Dyson before.
But
right?
Of the people that wrote the review, around 40% of people wrote about the fact that they're coming from a previous version of a Dyson. Is that correct?
I mean, it was very, very high. As you can see, 29% already mentioned that came from Dyson version without specifying it. If you do the sum, it's probably like more 60-70%.
So there are two kind of buyers that are coming to this page. And I think the sales page that is you're presenting for someone who is from the Dyson family already is quite different than the sales pitch you're presenting to someone who is coming from a competing brand, has never bought the Dyson brand. Because if someone has not bought the Dyson brand, you need to actually sell them on your brand first and then sell them on the Dyson outsize. And so anyway, I think we can, do you think this is a good wrap-off point, or is there some other points you want to make?
It's good. It's good. There's two more tabs I want to quickly show with some ideas I had. So if you go in the use cases tab.
Yep.
So basically this use case tab shows basically some mentions around why people, like in which sort of like use case. You could call it persona, but I'm not a huge fan of the concept of a persona. But as you can see, like over 56% of people that actually mentioned to be part of like a persona bucket, they're actually dogs owner. Another interesting one was 12% said that they're cats owner. So a lot of people actually mentioning how they own a pet and how, the Dyson is great to pick up dogs and cats hair. So in the product page, there is a little bit of a mention around, if you scroll down. Yep. Yeah, right there. Yeah. So as you can see, there is some mention around being able to pick up dog's hair. There is that kind of sort of image of the dog. But actually, there is a bigger opportunity here to give more real estate to this use case, because again, the percentages here are of people that actually mentioned it. We don't know how many people that come to this page actually own a dog. It could definitely be something that we could ask with an exit poll on the page. Like, do you own an animal? Do you know what kind of animal do you own? Just to learn more about our users. But there is an opportunity here to actually show how powerful the Dyson is at picking up dog's hair. they have that video that shows it, but I think that video, I'm not going to play it, but I think that video can be 10x more powerful and persuasive. The other thing I wanted to mention was about the anxieties. So we talked about benefits, we talked about value, but when you look at a product page, there's always like a sort of like a battle going on in the mind of the user. From one side, there is the value and the benefit, and on the other side, there is the risk, there is the anxiety of, oh, I'm afraid of making this commitment, especially, you know, for a $700 product. So what I recorded here, again, looking at the insights and the reviews from the product page, this is the list of anxieties that have been mentioned by people. And I would say the classic sort of like statement of an anxiety is, oh, you know, I love the product. Before buying it, I wasn't sure about X, Y, and Z. So I was a little bit hesitant about buying it. And then, you know, I got convinced and I bought it. So whenever they said, oh, I was a little bit hesitant about it, or I wasn't too convinced about because of X, that's when they actually, with their own words, they express their anxiety. And as you can see, 27%, you know, the sample size here is small because a lot of people don't mention anxieties at all. But a lot of people mentioned that they didn't want to buy it because they thought that the product was too heavy. So now there's this anxiety, and then obviously here I would actually run additional research to understand what other anxieties and what the percentage of each anxiety is, just because reviews mining is just one part of research that you can do. There's a lot of more techniques that you can use, which we'll talk about in future episode. But if users have that anxiety, that fear that the product is too heavy, there's an opportunity here to actually you know, lower that anxiety and lower that objection. And when I talk about that, I'm not saying you state that the product is like super light. Absolutely not. But there's a way to actually, you know, using value to explain why, for example, like you could show a kid using the vacuum,
or an old person,
or a person, yeah,
and old person, you know,
old person, yep, absolutely. Or even like a tiny person, like a very short person, right? And you're not really saying, oh, this product is super light, but you're implying that it's not that heavy.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, you know, you talked about prices being an anxiety. I wonder if in my annotation, because one of the things I always, so you'll notice over here, I also annotated the price point. And this is something that we always, this is like a cheat code that always works. We know that the user, first of all, we know that when a user comes to the page, obviously they look at the product, but they're really fixated on the price. I don't care what you're selling, and I don't care what the price point is. Even if it's $50, pulling out your credit card, evolution has taught us not to do it. And so there's a lot of anxiety over here. And oftentimes brands will do a good job explaining and justifying their price in their sales pitch. Well, look, the user is looking over here. This is where I need to address the elephant in the room. So we always, the ultimate cheat code over here is we always add a button over here that says something like, you know, quality matters, or, you know, price explanation, something. We experiment different wordings. And when you click on it, who's going to click on it? First of all, for people that don't care about they don't consider this to be expensive, they don't care about this button. They'll ignore it. People that are sensitive, and a lot of people are sensitive, they will click on this. And now the copywriter knows why this person is coming here to this light box, and they are going to construct a sales page that is surgically going to talk about price justification. So always on your product page, always have a button. In fact, we've never run a test where we don't include this. We always justify price, because I don't care what survey you're running. I don't think there's a survey in the history of retail where the number one and number two thing that the customer is talking about isn't price.
Absolutely. Whenever I run an exit poll asking what's stopping people from purchasing, I would say 99% of the clients I've worked with, their customers say price. So in fact, I didn't even really talk about pricing at all when we showed the anxieties that people have, because pricing is always an anxiety across industries, customers, and so on.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people misunderstand, like, that the anxiety is around just the price point. Remember, the anxiety is principally about the fact that I'm going to give my credit card information to a website. And I mean, like, that's a lot of anxiety. It's not just like, even if I'm buying something for $1, the fact that I'm giving my credit card causes anxiety for me, because I'm like, I mean, what if they don't ship it in time or whatever, like, it's all related to that trust thing, right? And so and price point is our proxy for it. But yeah, are there other things, Lorenzo, you want to cover, or I think we've covered enough?
I mean, we could be staying here for like 5 hours at least, covering a lot of other elements on the page. But I think, it's been, almost an hour, I believe. So I think we can wrap up with some final thoughts, Rishi.
I would love for people to kind of comment and tell us what attributes they want us to spend more time on. I'm sure, like, I had questions about Lorenzo's research method. Like, like, I saw obviously the spreadsheet, but how did he do it? And, I would love to actually do an episode where Lorenzo can just talk specifically about, or maybe even screen share with us and actually show a little bit of the process, so other marketers can start applying this process to their own, and I can do something similar as well. I think I think we covered our points well, and we would love to even get submissions from people, not their own websites, but the idea isn't to, like, just we're not going to tear down any website, but we'd love to kind of make this a, we didn't pick Dyson because we have done lots of research on Dyson. We picked Dyson. We were looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes. We have lots of other interesting different types of websites that we've collected for you guys as well. Yeah, I think that's what I'll say.
Yeah, one thing we would love to hear your feedback in the comments, because we obviously value the feedback. This is episode 1, our pilot, so we obviously want to improve things. So yeah, just write some comments and let us know how we did in the first episode. And then finally, if you want to, again, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're interested to watch more episodes in the future. We'll cover a lot of stuff around customer research, copywriting, and buyer psychology.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lorenzo. This was really fun, and we'll get better and better as we do more episodes. We are doing this for you guys, so we want to have your participation. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys soon again.
Thank you, guys.